Oh man, everyone. So, this is a little special segment I think I'm going to start doing. I didn't do this with the pre-sequel, and I didn't do this with Borderlands 1, but I'm going to leave a review on this game. And I'm also going to leave a review on this episode on Borderlands 1 and Borderlands pre-sequel. So, I guess, first of all, I'll start with Borderlands 1. Borderlands 1 out of 10, what would I give that game in a rating? Borderlands 1, I'll give it a good 7.5 out of 10. And the only reason why I say that, it's not an 8, is because the same texture is used throughout the entirety of Borderlands 1. And, on top of that, it's kind of like the same color palette through the whole game. And then when you get to DLCs, yeah, like some of the DLCs just, they're so killer, like they rock. They're so fun to play, but the thing is, in my opinion, I feel like it could have used a little bit more pizzazz, you know, like it was going to be, and it was, the game in the forefront that was leading every other game that's similar to it. You know, like it was the example. And so with that, it's a 7.5 out of 10. It was the storyline was very nice. Playing Borderlands 1, the side quests were really cool. However, something I'm kind of iffy about is the pre-sequel, and here's why, right? Like, out of a rating of 10 of Borderlands, the pre-sequel, what would I give the pre-sequel? I'd give the pre-sequel, honestly, like, straight up, I would give the pre-sequel a 4 out of 10. The reason why I would give the pre-sequel a 4 out of 10, not because of the story, right? It's getting a 4 out of 10 because of the story. The gameplay, that is just like, I can't stand it. It's Jumping Simulator 2.0. You just jump a lot. You use your CO2 pack, your CO pack, to just launch yourself everywhere. You're fighting in the air, you're jumping all the time. Headshots, every enemy in that game, their heads are huge, which is like, hey, it's pretty nice. However, it does give off a different vibe because of that. It doesn't really give a Borderlands vibe, it gives more of a Destroy All Humans 2 kind of vibe, because everyone's head is huge and everyone looks like aliens. No one looks like psychos, you know, let alone because psychos were made on Pandora, and they are what they are on Pandora because I believe it was Hyperion, or maybe it was the Atlas Corporation, I forget who, but they released all their prisoners into Pandora, and that's why it is the way it is, because they're all basically prisoners of one of the corporations that basically lead the entire galaxy. So the story is what's giving it a 4. Everything else in the pre-sequel, honestly, is just, it's pretty garbage. It's garbo. It's very straightforward. It's a linear game. Borderlands 1 definitely outshined the pre-sequel. And Borderlands 2, this game, absolutely outshined Borderlands 1 and the pre-sequel, for a multitude of reasons. 1, the gameplay. 2, the rendering. There's times where, yes, like the game will start kind of lagging, but it goes back to being smooth. Like the frame rate is just there. It's nice. The field of view, yeah, it's kind of set in this game, unless you're playing on PC, I believe. But in console, which is what I'm playing on, the field of view is alright. It's at a pretty decent level to where, like, my motion sickness isn't getting the best of me. However, it is being somewhat apparent, you know, it does come up every now and then. The amount of content in this game is also another reason why it outshines the pre-sequel, and it outshines Borderlands 1. The way that it brings the story, plot lines, subtopics, all this stuff together from the pre-sequel and Borderlands 1, it just, they do it in such a way in this game that it's just like, you have to pay attention to the quest that you're doing. You have to be somewhat emotionally invested into the game in order to realize, oh snap, you know, they're bringing up Henry. Why are they bringing up Henry? You know, well, they're bringing up Henry because his mom was eaten by a skag, and he went crazy, and he punched the skag, and the skag ate his fist, right? And, or whatever that guy's name was, but I believe the skag's name, I'm not the skag, the stalker's name was Henry. You know, like, you wouldn't know what I'm talking about if you weren't paying attention to this playthrough, or let alone the gameplay of what was going on, what was being said in each quest. This game, it's linear, but it's not as linear as the pre-sequel. And, well, not nearly as linear as the pre-sequel, but it's also not as linear as Borderlands 1. Borderlands 1 was like, okay, you're gonna go here, go straight forward, then you're gonna go straight back, and then go straight forward, talk to him again, go to another area, take all those quests, complete them, move back, you're on to the next area. It was segmented very well. However, there was points and times where enemies were too high level, right? This game is so balanced to where, like, you know, me doing everything and then, you know, leading up to where I was at and where I ended up here, that in itself, honestly, just, it's chef's kiss, in my personal opinion. It's chef's kiss. What else about this game? The gun variety, the amount of legendaries, the way that the talent trees work for each of the classes. It's just so much more satisfying, and it's so much more fun, and you have more versatility, you have more compatibility, you have more of a say in your playstyle in this one, as opposed to the pre-sequel, and as opposed to Borderlands 1. Borderlands 1 is very linear with your character. If you're going to play Mordecai, you had to choose a sniper, and you had to make sure it was an explosive or a slag, and you had to make sure that you were good at getting headshots, and you had to make sure that you had to get critical, you know, build a critical build and all that stuff, because the other builds just didn't work. Like, they gave you that option to have some form of versatility in your character and customizability, whatever, with your character as well. Like, if you wanted your character to be dots, like corrosive, slag, electric, fire, you know, even frost at some points in the pre-sequel, it's like you can do that in this game. You have so much more legroom to do that in this game. However, in the pre-sequel, Borderlands 1, you didn't really have that. Borderlands 1, I think I recorded roughly like 50-ish parts to Borderlands 1, or maybe it was like 40-ish. The pre-sequel took so many parts because the majority of the gameplay was just me running. In this, it's like the mob spawns are more compact. The mobs in this game don't hit you 100% as opposed to the mobs in Borderlands 1 and the mobs in Borderlands the pre-sequel. Because in the pre-sequel and in Borderlands 1, it felt as if though the enemies had, like, I want to say not 100% accuracy, but over 90% accuracy. Like, out of every 10 shots and miss one, you know, like, it was that extreme when it came to, you know, having to hide and wait for the enemies to reload, and as they're reloading, then you stand up and shoot. But like Borderlands 1 also had broken bosses, such as when you have to kill the Thunderdome boss with that's driving around in a car and shooting a rocket launcher at you literally every 2 seconds. 1 2 1 2 1 2. It's just you're faced with so many fucking rockets, and like you had multiple bosses like that where you would just keep dying and you have to exploit it somehow by hiding behind a pillar, or you know, being outside of the boss arena but still shooting at the boss. You know, like you had to exploit it in some way, shape, or form. And in the pre-sequel, it was just more so like at some point the game just got too easy, because you would get a gun from a quest, not by chance but from a quest, that you would just use through the entire playthrough. Like, and that's, if you watch my playthrough, the pre-sequel, you'll see like 1, maybe 2 different guns, possibly 3, that I'm using for a long period of time. In this game, I'm constantly changing, I'm constantly adapting, I'm constantly revising my build and my guns and what I'm using and what I'm not using. And you know, it's like, I love that about this game, because it keeps you on your toes, unlike the pre-sequel in Borderlands 1. In those games, it's kind of like Borderlands 1, you're playing, and like, if you look at this character's skin, right, it has like the cheetah cougar print, right? That like thing that a lot of like moms have for some reason, who like roughly like around their mid-40s or mid-50s. They have those tattoos, right? Imagine seeing that texture all over this map. Like, just visualize it right now, right? Like, just all that color, all that lighting, all that shading, just take it away and just plop that on everything that should have texture. The rocks, the building, the Hyperion base, everything. That is how Borderlands 1 feels and looked to me. Now, it did make up for it in some of the DLCs, like Dr. Ned's Zombie Island, right? That DLC was beautiful, amazing, very well done. Even the vendors, which is my biggest issue with this game and the DLCs with this game, but the vendors were just, they were very well made. You had all of these different vendors popping up in Borderlands 1 and with the DLCs, which was awesome. That's great. This game, the reason why this game I'm not giving it a 10, biggest reason why, and actually it's probably the biggest reason why a lot of the DLCs that I was rating did not receive a 10. Actually, I don't think a single DLC got a 10 in this, because either A, it had custom vendors, but like the story and the maps were all confusing and stuff like that, and it was very hard to follow through with the plot line to the DLCs as well, or the plot line to the DLCs were just very cut short, and it was just like, here, we're just giving you a little bit of information here, but a lot of areas to fight enemies, such as in Borderlands 1 and the pre-sequel. It was like giving you little bits and information here and there, right? Like Borderlands 1, obviously the entire game is lore, but in the DLCs, you get a little smidgen of lore, and now you're getting a bunch of, like, how do I put it? Now you're just getting a bunch of different areas, like mob spawning zones, basically. Like, you just think about, like, in Minecraft, you have a bunch of mob spawners everywhere. But in between pieces where you're going to give someone a diamond here and a notebook that says, like, oh, hey, do you know this guy Earl? And then you fight a bunch of enemies. This guy Earl, he likes the color red. And then you fight a bunch of enemies. This guy Earl also knows brick. But why does he know brick? You fight a bunch of enemies. Oh, he knows brick because of this. That was the formatting of most of the DLCs in Borderlands 1, in my opinion. And from what I was playing, what I saw. And you know, it's just like I understand you having to make something for someone to be able to play and farm, you know, long-term type type of vision and long-term mentality when it comes to programming games like this. However, I think that, like, if you're going to make a game that's very heavily based on you understanding who is who and what is what, I feel like you should focus more on your story writing and having these DLCs in a much better and profound and eccentric way. Since this is Borderlands, right? This game's very eccentric, it's very unique, it's different, it's like in your face and it's shock value, you know, all that stuff, like, and lots of Easter eggs. Like, you would expect that with the DLCs in Borderlands 1, but you didn't get that. You would expect it in the Borderlands, the pre-sequel, right? Because in chronological order, that's how I played all of these games. In chronological order and timeline, so that way whoever's watching can follow through with all the playthroughs and be like, oh, okay, this character's who, this guy, and this guy's this guy, and this girl actually knows this guy and is married to her cousin who knows this guy, and this other guy who built her a car, right? Like, and so playing these games in chronological order, you kind of see like where they kind of messed up and like what games are good and better because of other reasons and whatnot. The pre-sequel, it was like the beginning of the game felt so dragged out. You get to the mid-game, and now it's getting interesting. Now it's getting fun. Now I want to return and keep playing and keep recording more content for it, right? However, the thing about the pre-sequel is that it was drawn out in the beginning. In the middle, it's fun. It's like about mid-length, right? Mid-length fun and excitement. And it's like, oh my gosh, we're getting some, you know, insight. We're getting more lore. We're getting more like, hey, sorry, because my neck itches. It's like, hey, we're getting more lore. We're getting more insight on characters. We're getting a background. The handsome Jack, right? Like, even when the guy said his name in the beginning of the pre-sequel, he was like, John. I was like, this game's gonna be freaking fire. This game is gonna be so good. And it just, that at the beginning drags out. You're jumping everywhere. You're always jumping. Through the entire game, you're always jumping. And if you don't pick Claptrap, you have to stick and play around oxygen bubbles. Like, really? Oxygen bubbles? I have to play around that? Like, that's not fun. Why would you put something in a game that's like not fun? And it creates a constant sense of difficulty, an increasing level of difficulty as you progress through the game, because enemies start to hit harder and all this stuff. So it just, the pre-sequel, that's why it has such a low rating, because there's so many things about it that just suck. It just sucks, and it's just like, it's hard to play through. And I found myself like in the beginning being like, okay, I just want to get this over with. And in the middle, I'm like, okay, never mind. I'm actually having fun playing the game, and I'm seeing all these new side quests, and I'm doing all these things and whatnot. And then in the end, it was like, whoa, it's the end. Where did it go? Like, it was just, you know, like quick, super quick. Like, they finished it off way too fast. You know, because you know, when you're building a story, you have the baseline. You're setting a baseline, you're setting a tone for the story you're about to tell, right? And then you start going up that hill. Up that hill, you get conflicts, you meet new characters, all this stuff, right? And then you have the climax. Now, the climax, if you draw that out, wow, right? Amazing. Just like they did in Borderlands 2. The climax lasted for a very long time. And then you have a resolution. And that resolution was just, oh, amazing. It was so beautiful. You know, and the way that they wrote it down and they opened it up for new games, you know, them being like this one vault key fragment is the reason why we now can see all these different vaults. And that made the DLCs make sense in this game, because now it's like, oh, now we're just going to all these different vaults, and they still bring up Brick, there's still continuity. And like the DLCs in Borderlands 1, there's barely any continuity. However, it was giving you more background to some characters that would be brought up later on. Example, General Knox's Armory in Borderlands 1. You play that, you learn about Athena, you meet Athena, you learn that she's a former assassin who no longer works there. She was the lead assassin. General Knox is suicidal, all this stuff. Like, it's crazy to hear all that. And in Borderlands, the pre-sequel, you meet Athena and you actually play as Athena before because in the pre-sequel, the timelines, basically the pre-sequel was right after Borderlands 2, but not really, not necessarily, because the pre-sequel is basically right before Borderlands 2. And so it shows you what happens before Borderlands 2. You play Borderlands 2, now you're like, oh crap, okay, here we are now. So yeah, I mean, this game, overall, okay, here, let me re-rate Borderlands 1, the pre-sequel, and Borderlands 2. Borderlands 1, I would say, is an 8. I'll raise it up to an 8. Borderlands 1 is an 8 out of 10. Simply because, like, okay, like, the story does keep you moving, and it does keep you intrigued, it does keep you interested, it keeps the tensions high, you know, and it tugs at your heartstrings a lot, and all that good stuff. Story-wise, great game. Borderlands pre-sequel, I'm gonna give it a 4.5. I'm gonna raise it up by 0.5 points. The only reason why I say that is because I did actually enjoy playing Claptrap, the class of Claptrap. However, I do know, and it's staying low as well, because I do know that if I chose any other class and I had to deal with that oxygen regulation type of stuff, I would have probably had 12 more parts to that series, and it just would have dragged on longer and longer than it had to, honestly. So that's gonna say 4.5. Borderlands 2. Borderlands 2, I'm gonna give Borderlands 2, I'm gonna give it a 9.5. I'm not gonna give it a 10, because, and this is my biggest ick about this game, right? My biggest ick is this. The main story, like when you're playing through the main storyline and you're doing the side quests, all that stuff, beautiful, amazing, well done game, right? However, I just don't like the fact that in the DLCs, right, this is stuff that people are gonna spend money on, and not just any people, right? Like, you could have children who are saving up money, who are going to mow lawns, all this stuff, to have the amount to buy this DLC, right? You don't know, like, someone's story out there, like, someone could be making a lemonade stand, someone could be working 9 to 5, you know, it doesn't matter. Someone had to earn that money somehow, and now they're going to give it to you for something new, something different, something in the game that they haven't played before. And what did you do in most of the DLCs that I played through here in this game? You reuse the same vending machines that you can see at any time in the main storyline. I sound like a broken record saying this over and over again, but I stand true to my grits, and that it's as follows. If you're going to spend money on something new, downloadable content, that is additional content you are now experiencing. That is additional content your customer, because that's what it is, your customers are looking forward to. Your customers, your fans, whatever you want to call them, people that are giving your company money. And it speaks volumes about your company when you literally pull a freaking Call of Duty. Like, you take aspects, programming, coding, all this stuff from a game prior, and you just copy and paste it into the new game, and you just add new textures, you add quote-unquote different bombs and different things to the game, but it's all the same gameplay. It's just different animations, different textures, and different maps. That's it. Like, I feel like, personally, I feel like that's such a rip-off, and it's such a huge smack to the gamer's face. Like, you know, especially coming from nothing, and I'm still somewhat in nothing, right? Like, if I'm gonna spend $40, if I'm gonna spend $40 on something, $40 is a lot. $40 could get me a pack of diapers and a pack of wipies that'll last me for a whole month, right? Not for myself, obviously, but for my child. So, like, if I'm gonna spend diapers and wipey money on a DLC, like on game content, in-game content, I'm gonna want the most out of that, man. And it's like, I can tell when something's been rushed, because, you know, I looked into making games, I looked into computer programming, I looked into software development, I looked into coding and how coding works, and so I have a generalized understanding of it, right? A generalized, I'm not saying I'm a professional, but a generalized understanding of how this stuff works. And I could tell you that taking the same model, the same, you know, programming, as opposed to, like, you walk up to it, you press square, it opens up the menu, it all works fine and dandy, right? All of that coding, that's what I'm talking about. Taking it from one, let's just call it USB, and putting it into another one is not downloadable content. Like, just labeling the second USB as, oh, this is USB version 2. Okay, well, what's in USB version 2? Well, it's the same thing. It's the same crap. So it's kind of a letdown, you know, like, don't be lazy when it comes to making games. Take your time on it, and I can guarantee you, people will see less problems with it. You'll get higher praise, you'll get higher ratings, you'll get more revenue, you'll get more income. It's literally like, it's like paying an animator to animate a cartoon, right? That's where you want to put all your money, right? Put all your money into it. Just go full force into it, and just pay your coders, pay your software developers, pay the people that are going to plan, pay your writers, right, to write a good freaking story, a good solid story that people are going to remember and they're going to play it. Like, I'm not going to spoil you guys in case you're following up on this whole series and everything up to this point on Borderlands 3. However, what a beautiful ending, beautiful ending. When me and my wife played that game for the first time and we beat that game, we both were sobbing at the end. However, we probably had a different response, a different reaction to that ending than most, because we 100%ed every single game prior to that, except for Tales from the Borderlands, because we didn't have that. However, for this Christmas, I got an early Christmas gift from my wife. She got me the new Tales from the Borderlands, and it's a deluxe edition, so it comes with Tales from the Borderlands as well. So it's perfect. It's perfect, especially for the series, especially given the time frame of me actually coming close to completing this series. So, oh man. Yeah, this game, overall, really great game. DLCs are awesome. The classes, oh man, the class is so good all around. The classes in the pre-sequel were alright, and in the Borderlands 1, obviously, you know, they're the GOATs, they're the OGs, so it has that nostalgic feeling, you know, when you're playing Borderlands 1. But yeah, that's my review on the 3 games. Whenever I'm done with the game now, I'm just gonna go ahead and do a review episode, so if y'all are following through with this and stuff, you know, I'll definitely have a lot more to say, and it'll be much more concise to that game itself as an individual game, because I'm not trying to cram in memories of the past games I just played, and I'll have just played that one single game. So yeah, other than that, thank you all so much for keeping up with me so far on this little journey. I will have other games up on my channel if you guys want to watch those other games, because I'm not going to be just a Borderlands channel, which some people are asking already. No, I'm not going to be a Borderlands only channel, but I am a very big fan of Borderlands, so I might do some returning content like farming or something, I don't know. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and boot up Tales from the Borderlands now, and I'm gonna go ahead and get started on that. So, you know, thank you all so much for keeping up with me keeping up with the series, supporting my channel. It